A year after our divorce. My ex texted, "We need to talk now." I replied, "Busy, date night with your best friend." 24 hours later, I found out her new guy got arrested, and my name was all over the case. Sup Reddit. Name's Nolan, 36 male. I need you to grab some popcorn. This one is really messy. The text hit my phone on a Saturday, while I was parked outside a Vietnamese place, waiting for Sloan to grab our order. New number, but I knew it was her right away. Ava had this way of reaching out when she needed something. Always urgent, always dramatic, always about her. I need to talk. Today. It's important. 1 year and 3 months since the divorce papers went through. 15 months of silence, and now this. I typed back without hesitation. Busy. Date night with your best friend. Her response came in waves. First, the typing indicator popped up and disappeared like 6 times in a row. Then my phone blew up with 12 messages in 90 seconds. Words like betrayal and disgusting and you two deserve each other just kept coming. Then a voicemail I didn't listen to. Then silence. Sloan climbed back into my truck with a bag of spring rolls and faux containers and saw my phone going off. She glanced at the screen and raised an eyebrow. Ava finally figured it out? Took her long enough. You good? Never better. And I meant it. 24 hours later, I found out exactly why she'd been so desperate to reach me. Why finding out about me and Sloan sent her into a complete meltdown. But to understand all that, I need to take you back to the beginning. To a night in October when I came home from work and found my wife surrounded by matching luggage, like she was putting on a whole performance for nobody but me. 6:15 on a Thursday in October. I pulled into my driveway after spending 12 hours crawling through commercial ductwork because one of my guys called in sick and the restaurant client was threatening to cancel their service contract if their walk-in cooler wasn't fixed by dinner rush. My knees were absolutely shot. I run a commercial HVAC company. Nolan Cole Commercial HVAC. 12 employees, over 40 active service contracts, and apparently one wife who'd been planning her exit for months without saying a word to me. The house was dark when I walked in. No TV, no dinner smell. No sound except the ticking of that grandfather clock her mother gave us as a wedding gift 7 years ago. Found her in our bedroom surrounded by luggage. 3 matching pieces and some seafoam color she'd picked. She was emptying her side of the closet with the focus of someone who'd practiced this whole thing in her head a bunch of times. She didn't look up when I walked in. Just kept folding a silk blouse like I wasn't standing there. "Taking a trip?" I asked. "Taking my life back," she said. "I want a divorce." I leaned against the doorframe because my legs were done, and I wasn't about to give her whatever reaction she was hoping for. "You're leaving me on a Thursday? Couldn't even wait for the weekend?" She finally looked up with this expression I'd never seen on her face before. Like I was already a stranger she was trying to forget. "This isn't a joke, Nolan." "I know, jokes are funny." I nodded at the luggage arranged around her. "That's a lot of bags for someone who told me 2 weeks ago she was happy." Her jaw got tight. "I've been unhappy for years. You just never noticed because you're always covered in grease and obsessing over compressor specs and quarterly numbers. Those compressors paid for your Pilates membership, and that luggage you're packing, and the car in the driveway, and the house we're standing in. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about." She smoothed her hair back. Ava always did that when she was about to say something she'd rehearsed in the shower. "You make everything about money. You have zero emotional depth, no ability to actually connect. I've outgrown this marriage, Nolan. I've outgrown you. Is there someone else?" She didn't answer, which told me everything. "Who is it?" "It doesn't matter who. It matters to me. 8 years together. I think I've earned a name." She grabbed the handle of her largest suitcase and started rolling it toward the door. I didn't move. She stopped 3 feet from me and lifted her chin in that defiant pose she always used during fights. "His name is Ian. Ian Whitmore. And before you start spiraling, he's not why I'm leaving. He's just where I'm going. Ian Whitmore." I knew that name. Commercial real estate guy, with billboards all over the county. The type who wore expensive suits and posted motivational garbage on social media, like he invented the concept of hard work. He'd tried to lowball me on servicing his office building the year before. Wanted his AC unit fixed in exchange for a testimonial on his company website. "Ian Whitmore," I repeated. "The guy who tried to pay me an exposure for HVAC work? He's a successful businessman. He tried to get a busted condenser fixed for free. Wanted me to accept a quote on his website as payment for actual labor. That's not business. That's delusion with a marketing budget. You're missing the point." "No, I'm getting the point just fine." I stepped aside so she could wheel her luggage through. She stared at me like I'd said something crazy. She expected a fight, maybe tears. What she got was logistics. "You're not even going to fight for me?" "Why would I?" I headed for the stairs toward the guest room. Behind me, I heard her make some noise that was part frustration, part disbelief. I slept in the guest room that night, just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling doing math. What the business was worth, what I'd need to rebuild, how many contracts I'd have to add to make up for her being gone, what the next 5 years would look like without her. While she probably expected me to fall apart, I was already planning. The next morning, I drove to the shop before sunrise. Nolan Cole Commercial HVAC operated out of a converted warehouse in the industrial district. 16,000 square feet of organized chaos, a fleet of 8 service vans, and a reputation for actually showing up when we said we would. In this business, that's rarer than you'd think. My shop foreman Hector was already there when I pulled in. He'd been with me since year 2, back when the company was just me, a used van, and blind optimism that was borderline stupid, built like a fire hydrant. He took one look at my face and set down his coffee. "You look like someone kicked your dog, stole your truck, and talked trash about your mom all at once." Ava left. He didn't flinch, just nodded like I'd confirmed something he'd suspected for years. "About time. You're not surprised?" "Boss, I've been married 31 years. I know what a happy wife looks like. That woman hasn't smiled at you since we were still using R22 refrigerant." He handed me a clipboard with the day's work orders. "You want to talk about it?" "I want to work." Good answer. I threw myself into the day, like my sanity depended on it. Fixed equipment, ran inventory, made calls to vendors getting antsy about payment terms. The business wasn't struggling exactly, but it wasn't killing it either. Breaking even most months, pulling ahead on good ones, dipping into reserves on bad ones. The kind of financial balancing act that keeps you up at night if you think about it too much. Around 11, I got a call from Donovan Briggs. Donnie ran 3 car dealerships in the county and had been my biggest client for 4 years running. Steady work, reliable payments, always within 30 days. "Nolan, we gotta talk," he said. His voice had that tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news, but feel guilty about it. "What's going on, Donnie?" "I got approached by another outfit yesterday. Whitmore Commercial Services. They're offering to undercut your rate by 15% and lock me into a 2-year contract. Full maintenance package with emergency response guarantee. They had a whole presentation." My stomach dropped. "Whitmore Commercial Services?" "Yeah. You know them?" I knew them now. Ian Whitmore. The guy currently unpacking my wife's luggage at whatever overpriced condo he lived in. He wasn't just taking her. He was coming for my business too. "Did their sales guy happen to mention how they got your contact info, Donnie?" "Now that you mention it, yeah. Said they'd been referred by a mutual connection. Someone who knew our service history and maintenance schedule and thought we'd be a good fit for their premium package." I figured it was just sales talk. It wasn't sales talk. It was my wife selling me out one client at a time. "Donnie, I've serviced your dealerships for 4 years. Never missed a call. Never left you hanging on a weekend. Never blamed supply chain stuff for slow response times." "I know, Nolan. That's why I'm calling you first. But 15% is 15%. I got shareholders to answer to. I got a board that goes over every expense line every quarter. Give me a week. Let me put together a counteroffer. Something that makes sense for both of us. You got until Friday, but I need something real, not just promises and handshakes." I hung up and sat there thinking. He was making targeted moves against my clients using information he shouldn't have had, and Ava was obviously part of it. Hector showed up in the doorway. "Bad news? Whitmore Commercial Services just tried to poach Donnie." "Whitmore? That's the real estate guy, right? The one with the billboards everywhere?" "Same guy. He's also the one my wife left me for." Hector was quiet for a second. Then, "You want me to accidentally drop a toolbox on his car sometime? I know a guy who knows where he parks." Tempting, but no. I stood up. "I want to know how he got Donnie's contact info. And I want to know what else he's been up to while I wasn't paying attention." The answer came 3 days later, and it was worse than anything I'd expected. Ava had been forwarding my client list to Ian for months. I found out because my accountant Ruth Ann, this super detail-oriented woman who'd been doing my books since year 1, noticed weird stuff in the email system logs while reconciling quarterly invoices. "Someone accessed your CRM system 17 times in the past 60 days from an IP address that doesn't match your office, your home, or any of your text devices," Ruth Ann said, sliding a printout across her desk. "The login credentials used were your wife's, the one you gave her 2 years ago, so she could help with billing during busy season." I looked at the printout. Dates, times, files accessed. Client contact info. Contract renewal dates. Service histories. Pricing structures. Vendor relationships. Everything a competitor would need to poach my entire customer roster. "She was feeding him my business," I said. Ruth Ann nodded. "Systematically. Over at least 5 months. And there's more." She pulled out another document with the look of someone about to deliver another gut punch. 3 weeks ago, someone applied for a business credit line in your company's name. Application used your tax ID and your business address. It got denied because of a fraud flag from your bank, but the attempt is on record. They tried to open credit in my name, in the company's name, but you're the sole proprietor, so it's basically the same thing. If it had gone through, they could have racked up charges that would have been your legal problem. My wife had been sabotaging me for months while sharing my bed, while telling me she loved me and forwarding my client list. Ian Whitmore wasn't just her escape plan. He was her business partner in tearing down everything I'd built. So I started building a case, documenting everything, saving every log, every timestamp, every suspicious activity. I moved out of the house that weekend. Didn't fight for it. Didn't argue about furniture or photo albums or any of the stuff that piles up over 8 years of marriage. Just packed what I needed, which turned out to be way less than I thought, and drove to a furnished apartment near the shop. The divorce paperwork was straightforward because I made it straightforward. Ava got the house and the car and every decorative thing she'd spent 8 years collecting. I got the business and all the debt attached to it, which she didn't realize was actually the way better deal. Her lawyer looked at me like I was crazy for not fighting harder. My lawyer, a pit bull named Joanna, who I'd met through a mutual client years back, just smiled. "You're giving her exactly what she thinks she wants," Joanna said after the signing. once Ava and her attorney had left the conference room. A house with a mortgage she can't afford on her salary alone, and a car payment that's gonna eat her alive. Meanwhile, you keep the only asset that actually makes money. Theo. She wanted the lifestyle. Now she gets to maintain it without my paycheck. Smart guy. What about the other stuff? The client poaching and the credit fraud attempt. I'm documenting everything. Ruth Ann's building a file that gets thicker every week. Good. Keep at it. When you're ready to move, we move together. And we move hard. I spent the next 3 months doing exactly that. Every client contact from Whitmore's new company, I logged. Every suspicious access to my systems before I changed all the passwords, I recorded. Every bit of evidence that Ava had been helping him, I kept in triplicate. Digital copies, printed copies, copies on a separate hard drive. Meanwhile, I had a business to run, and employees counting on me for their paychecks. Hector stepped up in ways he hadn't before. He took over all the scheduling so I could focus on keeping clients and doing damage control. He trained 2 new techs who actually showed up on time and didn't treat the job like they were doing me some favor. He even started coming in on Saturdays to help me rebuild the client database from scratch with better security and passwords that weren't my wedding anniversary. You're working too hard, I told him one evening, when we were both still at the shop past 9. I'm Cuban. We don't know how to work any other way. It's in the blood. My grandfather worked until he was 87, fell off a ladder installing a ceiling fan, and was back at it 2 weeks later with a cast on his arm. He handed me a container of rice and beans his wife Rosa had sent. She'd been feeding me regularly since she heard about Ava. Every container came with a handwritten note about how I needed to eat more and how certain women weren't worth the trouble. Besides, I don't like people who steal. It's personal now. How's it personal for you? My brother-in-law ran off with my sister's savings and her business partner's wife back in '98. Same kind of snake. All teeth and no soul. The whole family spent 5 years cleaning up that mess while he was living it up in Florida like he'd won something. What happened to him? Hector smiled. Lives in a studio apartment in Tampa now. Sells used cars to tourists who don't know better. My sister owns a construction company and just bought her 3rd rental property last year. She sends him a Christmas card every December. Just a picture of her newest house. No note. Nothing. Just the picture. I like that. 2 months after the divorce was final, I got a text from an unknown number. Turned out to be Sloan, Ava's best friend since freshman year of college. 15 years of friendship, roommates after graduation, bridesmaids at each other's weddings, the whole deal. Heard you're single now. Also heard my best friend is a fraud. Like, actually a fraud. Can we talk? That last part got my attention. We met at a diner near the hospital where she worked as an ER nurse. She was already sitting in the booth when I got there, looking like she hadn't slept right in weeks. Before you ask why I'm here, let me just explain. Ava called me 3 days before she left you. Told me everything. She wanted me to be happy for her. Actually expected me to celebrate. Asked if I could store some boxes at my place, so you wouldn't find them before she was ready to bounce. What did you tell her? Told her she was making the worst mistake of her life, and that what she was doing was disgusting. That she was betraying someone who'd never been anything but good to her. We haven't talked since. 15 years of friendship, and she cut me off because I wouldn't cheer for her betraying a good guy. She pulled out her phone. But here's why I'm actually here. She sent me texts after that conversation. Detailed ones. About the business plan. The timeline. How Ian was going to use your systems and client database. She was so proud of herself, she couldn't stop bragging about how clever they were being. I screenshotted everything before she blocked me. She slid the phone across the table. Messages going back 5 months before Ava left me. Discussions about restructuring the client pipeline and leveraging Nolan's operational framework and building on his foundation without his overhead. Why are you giving me this? Because I spent 15 years thinking I knew who she was. Turns out I was friends with someone pretending to be a person, and I don't like being played. I forwarded the screenshots to Joanna that night. She called them extremely useful for establishing premeditation and intent. Sloan and I kept in touch after that. Not romantic at first. Just 2 people who'd both been burned by the same person and found some comfort in comparing notes. She'd text me updates when Ava posted something annoying on social media. I'd text her when the case documentation hit milestones. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into something more. She didn't want to fix me or change me or turn me into something I wasn't. She just wanted someone who showed up when he said he would and told the truth even when it wasn't comfortable. You know she's gonna lose it when she finds out we're together, Sloan said one night over Thai food at her apartment. Ava's gonna see this as the ultimate betrayal, worse than me refusing to help hide her boxes. You giving me evidence of her fraud wasn't the ultimate betrayal? Nah, that was justice. This... She pointed between us. This is personal. She's never gonna forgive either of us. Can you live with that? Been living with it since she asked me to help her lie to you. Some friendships need to end. She grabbed a spring roll off my plate. Besides, you're better company than she ever was. 6 months after the divorce, I got a phone call that changed everything. Donnie Briggs. The same client Ian had tried to poach with his 15% discount back at the beginning. The one I'd convinced to stick with me by matching the price and adding extended emergency coverage. Nolan, you need to come to my office, right now, and bring that lawyer of yours if she's available. I called Joanna, and we drove to Donnie's main dealership together. He was waiting in his office with a stack of folders on his desk, and a look I'd never seen on him before. Donnie was usually all smiles and handshakes and golf jokes. This was different. 6 months ago, I almost signed with Whitmore Commercial Services. You remember that. I remember. You also remember that 3 of my competitors in this market did sign with them. Guys I've known for 20 years. We share vendor contacts. We talk at chamber meetings. We've referred customers to each other forever. I remember. Biggest mistake any of them ever made. He slid the folders across his desk. Take a look. The first folder had invoices. Service calls for work that never happened. Parts charges for stuff that was never installed. Labor hours that didn't match any actual tech visit logs from Whitmore's own dispatch records. He's been billing them for work that never got done, Donnie said. Techs that never showed. Parts that were never replaced. One of my buddies runs a restaurant supply company across town. His invoices showed monthly filter changes on units that hadn't been touched in 6 months. He only figured it out when his walk-in freezer died completely, and the repair guy from another company found the original filters still sitting there, covered in dust. Never changed once despite 6 monthly invoices saying they were. I flipped through the pages. The scope was insane. How much are we talking? Just from the 3 guys I know personally? Over 50 grand in overbilling across 6 months? And that's just what they've been able to catch and prove. Joanna leaned forward. Are these business owners willing to put this in writing? Sign affidavits? More than willing. They're furious. Donnie pulled out another folder. But here's where it gets really interesting. I started asking around, talking to other business owners who'd switched to Whitmore because of his discount offers. Same story everywhere. Phantom service calls. Insane parts markups. Work that never actually happened. How many businesses total? At least 12 I've talked to so far. Probably more that haven't figured out they're being scammed yet, because they haven't had equipment failures that exposed it. I looked at the invoices again. The formatting was familiar. The service codes were familiar, because they were mine. Ian hadn't just stolen my clients. He'd stolen my invoice templates, my documentation system, my entire way of doing things. And Ava had given him access to all of it. One more thing, Donnie said. He pulled out one final document. This is a copy of Whitmore Commercial Services LLC registration from the state. Look at the listed members. I looked. 2 registered members. Ian Whitmore, managing member, and Ava Cole, 20% equity partner. Not Ava Whitmore, not her maiden name. Ava Cole, still legally attached to her when the company was formed. When was this filed? Joanna asked. 3 months before she left him. She was a founding partner of this company while she was still married to Nolan, while she was still living in his house. 3 months of planning. Joanna's voice was sharp. This is organized fraud. Wire fraud potentially, given the electronic transfers. And with her name on the LLC, she's personally liable for all of it. Not just as someone who helped, as an owner and founding partner. What do you want to do? She asked me. I looked at Donnie. How many of those businesses would be willing to come forward? Put this in writing? Testify if it comes to that? Donnie didn't hesitate. I'll make calls tonight. We coordinate and file together. More people, more power. That night, I sat in my apartment with the folders spread across my kitchen table. She'd looked me in the eyes for months while putting together everything she needed to bury me. Building a fraud case takes time, patience, documentation. Joanna brought in a forensic accountant named Wei, who spent a full month picking apart every invoice Whitmore Commercial Services had ever sent. The guy built spreadsheets that looked like modern art and found patterns nobody else would have noticed. Across all 12 businesses that came forward, the pattern was identical. Billing for services that never happened. Parts markups of 200% on stuff that cost a third of what they charged. Labor charges for techs who weren't even employed by the company on the dates listed. Total documented fraud. Just under 350 grand across 18 months of operation. And that was only the businesses willing to testify. Wei figured the real number was probably closer to 500,000. The screenshot Sloan gave me added another layer. Text messages proving Ava knew exactly what they were doing months before she left. Timestamps showing she'd been planning the client theft while still married to me. Joanna said it was the difference between maybe they made honest mistakes and they absolutely knew this was fraud and planned it out. This is enough for a serious civil suit, Joanna said when Wei laid out his findings. But if you want the really satisfying result, we need to get the state involved. Fraud at this level gets attention. They've got subpoena power we don't. They can dig into bank records, force people to answer questions under oath, make life really uncomfortable for people who thought they were being slick. Do it! She made the calls, filed the paperwork, got everything moving. Then nothing happened. For 6 weeks. The state's fraud division was backed up with cases from some big insurance scam that had been all over the news earlier that year. Our file sat in line behind 30 others. Joanna called every week for updates. Same answer every time. Reviewing. We'll be in touch. These things take time. Meanwhile, one of the 12 business owners got cold feet. Guy named Santos who ran 3 dry cleaners. He'd been one of the loudest voices early on, going off about how Ian ripped him off for 8 grand. I can't afford to get tied up in depositions and court dates for the next 2 years, Santos told me when I called to check in. I got 3 locations to run. If this drags on, I'm the one losing money sitting around in waiting rooms. You already lost money. Ian took $8,000 from you. That money's gone. Can't get it back by burning another 20 grand in legal fees and wasted time. He pulled his statement. Donnie spent a week talking him back into it. Took 3 dinners and promises that other business owners would cover any legal costs Santos couldn't handle. The state finally got moving in month 4. Assigned an investigator, started pulling records. Meanwhile, I had my own thing going. Hector and I reached out to every former client who'd left for Whitmore in the past 2 years. Just to check in. Ask how their equipment was running. Offer to answer questions. When people are getting ripped off, they notice eventually. Even if they can't put their finger on it at first. Something feels off. Bills seem high. Equipment keeps breaking despite supposedly being serviced all the time. They just don't have anyone to compare notes with. We gave them that comparison. By month 8, 4 former clients came back. By month 10, 7. By month 12, 11. Each had stories about equipment failures, billing issues, or service calls that never actually happened. Each signed a statement for Joanna's growing file. One guy who ran a chain of laundromats told me his dryer vents hadn't been cleaned in 18 months, despite monthly invoices for the service. Fire hazard. Could have killed someone. He was so mad he offered to testify twice if it would help. Ian, meanwhile, was getting cocky. Started posting about his rapidly growing commercial services empire on social media. Bought a new car. Put a down payment on a house in a gated community. Proposed to Ava with a ring she made sure to photograph from 6 different angles. Hector brought me the engagement announcement one morning. Caption read, "Finally finding my person after years of settling." Settling, Hector said with disgust. She called 8 years with you settling. Like you were just holding her spot until something better came along. He shook his head. Rosa wanted me to tell you she's praying for karma to speed up. Tell Rosa I appreciate that. She also wanted me to tell you she knows someone at the county clerk's office who could make certain permit applications real complicated for certain businesses. Probably not legal. She said justice and what's legal aren't always the same thing. I married a woman with strong opinions. They thought they'd won. I thought about patience. The notification came on a Tuesday in spring. 1 year and 6 months after Ava walked out with her matching luggage. Joanna called at 7 in the morning. It's happening. The state opened an official investigation. Ian and Ava are both named. Subpoena's going out this week. 18 months I'd waited for that. What's the timeline? Investigations take a while, interviews, document review, building the formal case. But the fraud amount is big enough that this isn't just civil anymore. If the evidence holds, and it will, we're looking at criminal charges. What do I need to do? Nothing. That's the beautiful part. You built the case, got the witnesses lined up. Now the system does its thing. You just keep your head down and wait. So I waited and watched. The first crack showed up 3 days after they got the investigation notice. Whitmore Commercial Services website went dark. Their main phone started going straight to voicemail. The service vans that used to drive around town with Ian's face plastered on them started disappearing from the roads. I drove past his office once. The parking lot that used to have 6 vans lined up all neat now had 2. One had a flat tire, the other had a for sale sign in the window. Donnie called with updates. He'd kind of become a friend over the past year. His clients are jumping ship. Word got out about the investigation. Nobody wants their name connected to a fraud case. His new contracts are canceling left and right. Existing clients demanding audits of every single invoice. How's he handling it? Not great. Showed up at one of the other guys' offices yesterday and started yelling about conspiracies, about how someone was sabotaging him. Had to be walked out by security. Building manager said he'd call the cops if Ian came back. 2 weeks after that, Ava called me. First time she'd reached out since the divorce was final. I let it ring. She called again. Let it ring again. Third time, she left a voicemail. Nolan, I know you're behind this somehow. And I know Sloan helped you. My own best friend turned on me for you. 15 years of friendship, and she stabbed me in the back. You need to make this stop. Please. I'm begging you. Everything is falling apart. Ian's losing it. The investigators are calling my work. My boss is asking questions. You gotta call this off. I saved the voicemail for documentation. Joanna said it might come in handy, then deleted Ava's contact info entirely, for my own peace of mind. 2 days later, Ian showed up at my shop. Eyes that hadn't seen real sleep in days. Walked through my front door like he owned the place, while 2 of my techs at the counter stopped what they were doing and watched. Hector moved to cut him off, but I held up a hand. Let the guy dig his own hole. You think you're clever, Ian said, voice too loud for the room. You think you've outsmarted me, but I know what you're doing. Working with those other businesses, feeding stuff to the investigators, trying to destroy what I built. I stayed in my seat behind the desk, kept my voice level. What you built, with my client list, my invoice templates, my whole system, the ones my wife stole. Ava and I are partners, equal partners. She had every right to bring her expertise to our company. Her expertise was being married to me. That doesn't transfer. His face went red. He took a step toward my desk. One of my techs, a guy named Ruiz, stood up from his chair. Didn't say anything, just stood there. Ian noticed. This isn't over. I got lawyers. I got resources. You think some small-time HVAC guy can take me down? I don't gotta take you down, Ian. You already did that yourself. I just wrote it all down. He left without another word. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the window. Ian's case dragged on for months. That's how this stuff actually works. Just paperwork, depositions, delays, and lawyers' billing hours while evidence stacked up. The forensic accountant testified. Walked through every fraudulent invoice, every fake service call, every inflated charge. Used charts and graphs that made the whole thing impossible to deny. $347,000 in documented fraud across 12 victim businesses. At one point, Way put up an invoice charging $800 for a capacitor that goes for $45 retail. Ian's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Donnie testified. 3 other business owners testified. They talked about trust being broken, about money they'd never see again, about realizing they'd been played by someone who smiled while picking their pockets. I didn't testify. Didn't need to. The evidence did the talking. Ian's lawyer tried arguing miscommunication and business inexperience. Said his client was a real estate guy who didn't really understand how HVAC operations worked. Said billing problems were honest mistakes, not intentional fraud. Nobody bought it. The state hit him with fraud and theft charges. Multiple counts. The kind that add up when you've been running the same scam on 12 businesses for a year and a half. He tried to fight it first. Demanded a trial. Then his lawyer apparently explained what happens when you go to trial with overwhelming evidence stacked against you. The plea deal he took wasn't generous, but it beat what the judge would have given him if he'd lost. He got real time. Not decades, but enough to matter. Enough to sit in a cell and think about all the clever moves that got him there. Plus, supervised release after. Plus, restitution he'd be paying off for years. Plus, he'd never run a licensed business in this state again. His fancy house went to foreclosure while he was waiting for sentencing. The car got repossessed. The engagement ring he'd used to propose got returned for whatever fraction of cash the jeweler would give. Ava took a plea deal too. Her lawyer convinced her that fighting would only make things worse, and that a jury wasn't going to be sympathetic to a woman who helped rip off local businesses while cheating on her husband. She got probation and community service and a restitution order that would follow her for years. The interior design thing she'd been building during our marriage fell apart when potential clients Googled her name and found court records. I heard through Sloan that Ava tried to start over under her maiden name. Didn't work. Someone in the local design community recognized her at a trade show and made sure everybody knew who she really was. Small industries have long memories. And the house? The one she demanded in the divorce? The one she thought was her ticket to freedom from me? The mortgage was in her name alone. I'd made absolutely sure of that during the settlement. She couldn't afford it on what she made, and Ian's money had disappeared into legal fees and frozen accounts. She missed 3 payments in 4 months. She put it on the market the week after Ian's sentencing. Listed at 25% below what we'd paid. Still couldn't find a buyer, because foreclosure properties flood the market, and nobody wants to pay full price for someone else's desperation. Hector brought me the listing printout with a grin. Same house, underwater by at least 30 grand. There's justice in the world after all. I didn't buy the house back. Didn't want it. Didn't need the satisfaction of owning something from a past I'd already left behind. The business doubled in the year after Ian's conviction, just because I showed up, did the work, and treated people like they mattered. Former clients came back because they knew I wouldn't cheat them. New clients came from referrals. Johnny sent me 3 new referrals in the first 6 months alone. We grew to 24 employees, added 4 vans to the fleet, moved into a bigger place with actual office space instead of a converted closet. Sloan and I got engaged. Hector gave a toast about stubborn people and playing the long game and how the best revenge is building something that lasts. A month after the engagement, Ava texted me from another new number. I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. You took my business, my reputation, and my best friend. I'll never forgive either of you for this. I looked at that message for a long time, thought about all the things I could say back, the satisfaction I could get from pointing out she'd ruined her own life. Instead, I typed 3 words. You're welcome. Goodbye. Some people spend their whole lives wondering what revenge looks like. I figured out that it looks like building something that lasts, while the people who tried to tear you down watch from whatever distance their choices put between you. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.